crazy. We're just journalists and they're all calling us Nazis.
Charlie's family, we all pray for you.
With the assassination of Charlie Kirk, how do you guys perceive that?
Well, you reap what you sow, don't you? Peddle hate, you peddle gun violence.
No one deserves to get killed. I mean...
Nazi scum! Off our streets! Nazi scum! Off our streets!
It's crazy. We're just journalists and they're all calling us Nazis.
When people stop talking, that's when you get violence.
What does the sign say?
Hey! We just got beer on us.
And it was peaceful until the other side came. They stopped us from being able to hear the speeches.
Policeman's come with a baton, hit him 3 times in the head when he can't move. Sent him away bleeding, blood everywhere. I got it on me.
That's when civil war happens.
Just pure brutality. People ain't got no rights at all.
In the UK, 30 people a day are arrested for offensive social media posts in the UK.
We came all the way here to see Tommy Robinson speak, and instead we are being separated as the police protect the little anti-racist protesters that are here.
What do you see as the biggest threat to free expression in higher education today?
The left.
We are here with
Adventure Elliott, guys. How's it going? Wisconsin represent. We're here to support free speech with our British brothers. As you can see, we have same colored flags. This is just as important to us as it is to everyone here.
My country, America, became great as it is because of what we inherited from you, from Britain.
And I don't mind immigration, that's fine. I'm against invasion. And that's what I feel it is at the moment. Enough is enough.
Free speech is important because without it, we can't share our ideas without turning to violence. What we saw this week with Charlie Kirk is like a massive example of that. If we don't have free speech, things are just going to dissolve into violence, and that's the last thing we want.
1 minute ago, the air outside Parliament turned poisonous. The sound wasn't applause. It wasn't chants of support. It was a storm of rage. A tidal wave of boos that swallowed Keir Starmer whole. "Traitor!" they shouted, their voices cutting through the morning air like knives. What does this mean for his leadership and Labour's future? For a man who built his career on a polished image of control, calm and authority. This was a public humiliation unlike any he had faced before. The crowd didn't just protest, they condemned. Placards reading "You sold us out" and "Not in our name" weren't just words on cardboard. They were daggers aimed directly at Starmer's political heart. What does it mean when the very people who once trusted you, who once voted for you, who once believed in your promises now scream betrayal in your face? For Starmer, this wasn't just a bad day at the office. This was the crumbling of the very foundation his leadership was built upon. And yet, as he walked through the deafening chants, forcing that lawyerly poker face, one truth became undeniable. The mask was slipping and the country was watching every second of it. The protesters were not faceless enemies or rival parties. They were his people. Labour voters, disillusioned activists, once loyal supporters who now felt abandoned. This is what makes the humiliation so raw, so devastating. It wasn't the Conservatives shouting him down. It wasn't right-wing media stirring chaos. It was his own base, the very foundation he thought he could rely on. And when that base turns against you, what hope do you have left? Starmer had always believed he could keep everyone happy with his steady hand approach. Pragmatism, compromise, cautious politics, that was his brand. But compromise cuts both ways. For the protesters outside Parliament, compromise had turned into betrayal. Brexit, he softened his stance and alienated those who wanted bold resistance. Gaza, he refused to speak with conviction, pushing away the younger, progressive voices who demanded justice. And now it all came back to haunt him in the most brutal way possible. On camera, live, unfiltered, with the word traitor echoing across London. And make no mistake, the cameras captured everything. In today's world, humiliation isn't contained to one moment. It spreads, it multiplies, it becomes a weapon. Within minutes, the footage was flooding social media feeds across the nation. Clips of Starmer ducking through the crowd, of him pushing forward with his security while voices shouted, "Resign!" These weren't just images, they were symbols of a man out of touch, a leader exposed, a party at war with itself. Inside Parliament, whispers turned into murmurs, murmurs into conversations. MPs glanced at each other with unease. Was this just another protest, or was it something bigger, something historic, a signal that Starmer's grip on Labour was loosening by the hour? Because here's the uncomfortable truth: when the public revolt spills directly onto the leader's doorstep, even the most loyal allies start calculating their own survival. And as the noise outside grew louder, as chants seeped through the very walls of Westminster, the question hung in the air. Is this the moment Labour's so-called unity shatters into pieces? The irony is sharp, almost cruel. Starmer rose to power, promising stability, promising to heal divisions after the chaos of Corbyn's years. He told the party he would be the grown-up in the room, the calm in the storm. But what happens when the storm is aimed directly at you? What happens when the people who once believed in your calm now see it as weakness, as hesitation, as cowardice, dressed up as caution? And the anger outside wasn't random. It wasn't just today's decision or yesterday's speech. It was years in the making. Every flip-flop on Brexit, every carefully worded hollow statement on international crises, every failure to stand firm against conservative failures, it all stacked up piece by piece until the tower came crashing down today in full view of the nation. The protesters didn't just see a cautious leader, they saw betrayal. They saw a man who had promised to fight for them and then slowly, painfully sold out that promise, piece by piece. The slogans screamed outside Parliament were more than chants. They were warnings. Warnings that the Labour Party under Starmer's leadership is bleeding trust. Warnings that the base has lost faith. And the cruel twist, once trust evaporates, it doesn't return. Not easily. Not quickly. Sometimes. Not ever. So here's the question no one inside Westminster wants to say out loud, but everyone is quietly asking themselves, is this the beginning of Keir Starmer's end? Or will he, somehow against the odds, manage to silence the voices calling him a traitor? Because if today is any indication, the tide isn't just turning, it's already crashing against him. But the real shock, the part Starmer fears most, is that the fury outside Parliament was only the opening act. Because behind closed doors, the knives are being sharpened. And the betrayal isn't just coming from the streets, it's brewing inside Labour itself. And when that happens, when the betrayal spreads from outside the walls to within, can any leader truly survive, or is Keir Starmer already standing on the edge of political ruin? The storm outside Parliament was bad enough, but what happened inside those walls was even worse for Keir Starmer. Because while the crowd branded him a traitor in the streets, inside Labour, the whispers of discontent were no longer whispers. They were open conversations. MPs who once clapped along to his speeches now exchanged nervous glances. Advisers who once assured him of loyalty now drafted private memos warning of an erosion of trust that could no longer be ignored. Starmer wasn't just facing public humiliation, he was staring down the cold reality of rebellion within his own ranks. Think about it. When thousands of Labour supporters scream betrayal outside Westminster, what message does that send to MPs clinging to marginal seats? It tells them one thing: survival means distance. Already, murmurs of disloyalty had crept into Labour corridors. Some MPs, once eager to stand behind Starmer, began quietly edging away, aligning themselves with rising voices inside the party who smelled weakness. Because politics is brutal. Loyalty lasts only as long as power does, and right now, Starmer's power was bleeding out on the pavement outside Parliament, and it wasn't just MPS, party staffers, unions, grassroots members, they all felt the tremors. Many had long warned that Starmer's strategy of cautious centrism was a time bomb. Too vague to inspire, too timid to defend, too compromising to build loyalty. For months, the warning signs had been brushed aside. Trust me, I know what I'm doing, was Starmer's unspoken mantra. But today, no one was buying it. The image of him being swallowed by booze had done more damage in a single hour than months of Conservative attacks ever could. The betrayal narrative was sticking. Brexit supporters called him weak. Remainers accused him of abandoning them. Progressives accused him of siding with the establishment over Gaza. Working class voters accused him of ignoring their struggles during the cost of living crisis. And in politics, when everyone accuses you of something different, it doesn't mean you're balanced. It means you've failed to stand for anything at all. This was Starmer's curse. He had tried to be everything to everyone, and in the process, he had become nothing to anyone. To his critics inside Labour, he was not the bold leader who could inspire a movement. He was the grey figurehead, the lawyer who dodged fights, the man who preferred caution over conviction. But here's the twist. Politics doesn't reward caution, it rewards courage, or at least the appearance of it. And that's exactly what Starmer lacked. Inside Parliament, the atmosphere was toxic. Reports began swirling that a faction of Labour MPs were drafting letters demanding a leadership review. Unions were said to be reconsidering their full support. And the parliamentary aides, always quick to sense shifting winds, whispered of a crisis that could not be contained. The images of angry crowds chanting traitor weren't just bad optics, they were a gift to his internal rivals, ammunition they could use to argue that Starmer was unelectable, untrustworthy, and ultimately a liability to Labour's future. The irony of it all? Only months ago, Starmer's team boasted of a united Labour ready to fight the next election. Today, that unity looked like a mirage. Behind the scenes, power brokers were already asking, if not Starmer, then who? Who could step into the vacuum if his leadership truly collapsed? And make no mistake, the vultures were circling. Political ambition thrives in chaos, and chaos is exactly what Starmer had walked into. But perhaps the most chilling part for Starmer wasn't the MPs or even the unions. It was the ordinary supporters, the rank and file Labour voters who had turned against him. Because when the base deserts you, no amount of media spin, no clever sound bites, no flashy speeches can save you. And as the protests grew louder, spreading to other cities, as hashtags calling him a traitor trended online, the question became unavoidable. Was this just a protest, or was this the beginning of a movement? A movement not against the Conservatives, but against Starmer himself. And here lies the ultimate danger. A leader can withstand criticism from rivals. They can survive smear campaigns from the press. They can even bounce back from electoral defeat. But no leader, no matter how polished or clever, can survive losing the trust of their own people. And today, the people weren't just disillusioned. They were enraged. The question now is this: with Labour divided, with protests spreading, and with MPs sharpening their knives, does Keir Starmer still have the power to hold his party together? Or are we watching the slow motion collapse of his leadership unfolding in real time, one brutal chant of traitor at a time? Because if this storm grows, if this anger hardens into a movement, Starmer may soon discover the most brutal truth in politics. Once you're branded a traitor, can you ever come back? Or has Keir Starmer already passed the point of no return? The storm outside Parliament had passed, but the echoes lingered. Even behind closed doors, even in the polished chambers of Westminster, the word traitor refused to die. It followed Keir Starmer like a shadow, staining every conversation, every headline, every whisper in the corridors of power. What began as a protest had now evolved into something far more dangerous, a crisis of legitimacy. Because here's the truth, politicians can spin statistics, they can dodge tough questions, they can bury reports in paperwork, but they cannot spin the sound of thousands of voices uniting in rage. Those chants weren't abstract, they weren't distant, they were raw, visceral, and recorded in crystal clarity for the entire country to hear. And once a leader is branded a traitor by his own people, that stain doesn't wash off, it spreads. The fallout was immediate. By the next morning, Labour MPs were already positioning themselves for what looked like an inevitable reckoning. Anonymous briefings began leaking to the press. Senior members hinted at serious concerns about Starmer's direction. Some stopped short of calling for resignation, but the language was telling. Re-evaluation, course correction, listening to the base. Words that in Westminster are never innocent. They are the political equivalent of circling sharks, smelling blood. Meanwhile, outside the bubble of Parliament, the fury grew. In Manchester, Liverpool and Birmingham, smaller but fiery protests erupted. Social media was ablaze with clips of ordinary people denouncing the Labour leader. Once proud party members tore up their membership cards on camera, vowing never to support Labour under Starmer's watch again. And if that wasn't humiliating enough, Conservative figures gleefully seized on the chaos, mocking Starmer as weak, finished, and the leader no one wants. The cruelty was sharp, the timing perfect. His enemies didn't need to destroy him. His own base was doing the job for them. And this is where the nightmare truly begins. Once your image as leader shifts from strong to weak, from trusted to traitor, the descent is almost impossible to reverse. Starmer had spent years carefully crafting the persona of the calm, composed alternative to Tory chaos. But the footage of him walking into Parliament, drowned out by boos and screams, had destroyed that in a matter of minutes. He no longer looked calm, he looked cornered. He no longer looked composed, he looked exposed. Even his allies struggled to defend him. Behind the scenes, party insiders admitted the obvious: the Labour leader had lost control of the narrative. And in politics, once you lose the story, you lose everything. Because elections aren't won with policies alone. They're won with trust, belief, momentum. And what happens when all three vanish overnight? And yet the most brutal twist is this: Starmer himself knows it. The man who built a career on cold logic, on analysing every angle like a lawyer, understands the evidence when it's laid bare. He can see the headlines, the polls, the defections. He can feel the silence of colleagues who once cheered him, now avoiding his gaze. He can hear the chants still ringing in his ears, louder than any speech he might give. The Labour leader who promised unity now faces revolt. The leader who promised stability now stands at the edge of collapse. And the leader who promised to bring people together now finds himself abandoned by those very people, cast out not by his enemies, but by his own supporters. So here's the question, the one that will haunt him in the weeks ahead. Can Keir Starmer possibly claw his way back from this humiliation, or are we witnessing the slow but certain end of his leadership? Because when a leader is branded a traitor, when the streets and the party turn against him in unison, there is only one question left to ask. Is this not just the beginning of the end, but the end itself for Keir Starmer?